Hi BookTube, my name is Juan, I am just one reader, and this is my reading wrap-up for the month of March 2022. As always, there will be no spoilers whatsoever in this video, so feel free to watch comfortably. So, in the month of March, I completed 6 books in total, 3 of which are fantasy novels in one series by Robin Hobb. And the other 3, 2 of them are nonfiction and the other one is a mystery. So let's get started with the mystery. The House on the Strand by Daphne du Maurier. This book follows our main protagonist. He is a man who goes to the countryside in England, as is usually the case with Daphne du Maurier characters. And we get to know a little bit about his life and especially his marriage. He is married to a woman who is not exactly, let's just say that their marriage is not a happy one. There is a lot of ambivalence, there is a lot of conflict, there is a lot of unresolved business between the two of them. Now, you might be thinking that this sounds like a very typical Daphne du Maurier novel. But guess what? There's a plot twist. Not a plot twist, but there's a twist in the choices that Daphne du Maurier takes. She introduces an element of science fiction, which is time travel. And this is not really a spoiler at all because this is the premise of the book. So this is something that you know right away from the synopsis in the back of the book. The synopsis of the book is that this protagonist finds a potion that when he drinks it, he travels back in time and he starts following these characters from centuries ago, and he just gets involved in their lives, in their drama, in their conflict. There's like a historical, political, weird element to this novel, which I think makes it a fairly interesting and unique Daphne du Maurier novel. So, in the end, I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. Let me tell you why. I really liked the main character's storyline with his wife and one of his friends and his experience in this manor house and his inner conflict. I really loved that. However, the portion of the book that takes place back in time, like when he's actually going back in time and observing these other people from the past, I was never fully engaged. I don't know what it was. I cannot blame the writing because Daphne du Maurier has a beautiful, exquisite writing style. She always does. So it wasn't that. I don't know what it was, but something kept me at a distance, at arm's length. I was never invested with those characters from the past. I was never really interested in following the drama that they were experiencing. So for those portions of the book, which are very frequent, of course, I was just not interested. So in the end, it's a book that might feel a little inconsistent to me personally, but it's beautifully written. It is telling something important about escaping one's own reality and running away from your own problems and issues and, escaping. You can actually interpret this book as an examination on fiction itself and art, going and escaping into another realm or reality and running away from yourself. So I liked those things, but the portions that take place in the past I wasn't a fan of. So that's why I am giving this book 3 stars, but I certainly recommend it because it's interesting, it's unique. If you like Daphne du Maurier's writing style, it's still brilliantly done here. Now I'm going to discuss the 3 fantasy novels by Robin Hobb that I read, which take place in the Rain Wilds. So this is the first 3 books in the Rain Wild Chronicles by Robin Hobb. So we have the first one, Dragon Keeper, the second one, Dragon Haven, and the third one, City of Dragons. So these are the first 3 in the quartet. I will be reading the 4th and final installment in April. So the Rain Wild Chronicles is the 4th series in the Realm of the Elderlings series, which is composed of 5 series, and this is a quartet. So the first 3 books in the Rain Wild Chronicles, so how can I explain this? We essentially, like if I had to tell you a very general synopsis, we follow a wide cast of characters, as is usually the case with Robin Hobb series. As they go from one location to another, there's always a journey in Robin Hobb books, right? And so that happens here. And on that journey, on that quest, there are different elements, different objectives, different characters with different motivations. Each character or set of characters has a different conflict, a different context, and Robin Hobb is really great at exploring each character and the relationships between these characters. If I had to compare this series to the other series that I have read by Robin Hobb thus far, I would say this is still pretty great. A lot of people say that this is very mediocre, but I actually am really enjoying this series so far. However, it's true, there are many elements of the previous series by Robin Hobb which are not in here just because of the nature of this series. This series takes place in a part of her world that doesn't involve some of the other characters. The Fitz, the Fool, some of the other characters that we have seen in the Farseer trilogy or in the Tawnyman trilogy. There are some characters in here from the Lifeship Traders trilogy, but it's really just a new set or a cast of characters. Some of these characters are likable, some of them are very, very despicable and you hate them. But for me, I don't need to like a character to find them interesting. I actually love characters that I despise and that I can really, really relish in hating them. But I do need to find the characters believable, convincing, interesting, fascinating, complex, all of those things. And Robin Hobb does that really, really well in here, as she does usually in all of her novels. So what I have liked the most this far in the series is the dragons. Everything that has to do with the dragons, the names of the dragons. Wow. I mean, Robin Hobb is 1,000 times superior to Brandon Sanderson, who doesn't know how to create that fantastical vibe of wonder and mystery and imagination. Brandon Sanderson is so technical, it doesn't feel like fantasy. Here, Robin Hobb is great because she creates these scenes of pure magic, of pure mystery. There's wonder and there's a feeling of, encountering the unknown, which I think is really, really wonderfully well executed. The names of the dragons is something that I love. I love reading those names. Wow, I just love Robin Hobb's writing. I love the things with the dragons. I love some of the characters that are so complicated, especially the grown-up characters. I'm not a fan of the teenage characters, but I don't find them as annoying as some other readers claim them to be. So let me just tell you that Dragon Keeper, the first book, was a 3-star book for me. It was good. It was just not as good because it's a very long introduction. Like, this book is over 500 pages and nothing really happens. It's just introduction and setup. I gave it 3 stars. Then the second book, Dragon Haven, was a lot faster, a lot more interesting and eventful. I gave it 4 stars. I really loved it. And then the third book, City of Dragons, this one has been my favorite so far. It's the shortest so far, and I also gave it 4 stars. So that is what I have read so far in the Rainwild Chronicles, and like I said, I will be finishing this series in April. And then finally, I want to discuss the nonfiction books that I read this month. Firstly, Apple of My Eye, which is a nonfiction book about New York City. This is by Helene Hanff, one of my favorite authors. She has a wonderful voice, very sophisticated but casual as well. At the same time, she feels like I don't know, like a kind of a grumpy but lovable person at the same time. She just has a voice. You know, it's so wonderful to read an author who actually has a very specific voice, a very specific tone. I've always found her voice charming, delightful, hysterically funny, nostalgic, and sweet as well. And this book is all about New York City, and she goes with a friend to visit all of the sites in New York. I read this book before going to New York. In March, I visited New York. I went to see a lot of Broadway shows, and so I wanted to read this, which is one of my favorite books. I've read this many times, and I wanted to read it again before visiting New York again. So this is a 5-star book for me. There's a reason why I keep coming back to this book. It's perfect. It is perfect. And finally, another book that I read, which is nonfiction, also a little bit about New York, Broadway specifically, is The Secret Life of the American Musical by Jack Viertel. And the subtitle is How Broadway Shows Are Built. And I think that should be the title, not the subtitle, because the title, The Secret Life of the American Musical, I think that's a little bit misleading or deceptive. This book is like the mechanics of the typical Broadway show. Essentially, what Jack Viertel does in this book is he explains the mechanics and the way that the structure of each Broadway show, or your typical Broadway show, and then he just explains number by number, like the opening number should do this, and the objective of a good opening number should be this. And then he gives a lot of examples from different shows, and that's pretty much it. That's pretty much the book. So there are some really great chapters, but some of them feel a little repetitive because he just does the same thing over and over again. This is the I want number, and this is what you will expect from, what you should expect from an I want number. And then he just lists examples and describes them. I know, like, it's a little simplistic to my taste, but I did actually learn some things, and there's a little bit of gossip and some fun facts that I learned from this book. So I'm glad and grateful that I read it, but I wouldn't necessarily recommend it. I would recommend it if it's your first book about Broadway shows. But if you are a little bit further on your understanding of those things, this might feel a little bit basic. I gave it 3 stars. So that's what I read in the month of March. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any thoughts, any opinions, if you want to recommend anything for me to read, and I will be very glad to see you on my next video. Thanks for watching. I am just one reader.